And there was one incident. So it was a place for sort of elder children and adults with learning disabilities. And one of the service users, he called me the P word while on placement.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
First I was like, have I heard this right?
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Listen In podcast. My name's Aravana.
My name is Anya.
And my name's Boomy.
Let's get into it. So today I'm very excited to welcome this guest onto our podcast. We have the wonderful Faizal. And Faizal is actually my colleague from work, who is the Band 7 team lead for feeding. He's a male SLT, which we don't see many of them, but it's just good to have him on board today on the podcast, just to talk and share his experiences. So without further ado, let's get started. So Faizal, I just want to start by asking you if you can tell us a bit about yourself today.
Yeah, so hi everyone. So my name's Faizal. So yes, as Anya mentioned, I'm the feeding lead in a London borough. I've been doing that role for 2 years, but within where I work, I've started as a Band 5, working in different parts of the service. And currently I do paediatric dysphagia. So a bit about me. So I'm a male SLT. I'm Muslim, so my faith is really important to me. And my sort of ethnicity is really funny. So I'm British, but my parents, they're actually born in Burma. But they're from an Indian background. And when they came to the UK, they didn't actually speak any sort of Indian language. They only spoke Burmese. But because of where they settled, they had to learn sort of Gujarati, which is the Indian language, because actually hardly anyone spoke Burmese in the UK at that time. But when people asked me when I was little, I never actually used to tell them that I'm sort of Burmese. It just used to be like, Burma, what? Bahamas? Huh? Where's that there? I never heard. And actually, it's not many people know about that country. So I just used to say I'm Indian. But as I don't know, as you get older, you kind of want to embrace all the sort of the difference in you. So so I would say, I'm a Burmese stroke Indian. That's my background. And I grew up in I was born actually in Manchester, so I'm a legitimate Manchester United supporter. But I came to London at a very young age, and I've always sort of lived around sort of East London. So I grew up in Newham, and I still live in East London Borough.
Cool, thank you. There's so much we could talk about there, especially like, I feel like anyone that is whatever you call us, second generation, first generation, whatever, it's always a long story. Like you can't it's always like, wow, where do I start? Who am I talking to? What's this for? That's really interesting, and I can kind of relate to the whole sort of people not knowing where Burma was, because like back in the day, I think a lot of people know Ghana now, but years and years ago you'll say Ghana and people are like, what, Guyana? I'm like, no, not Guyana. Then when I met Guyanese people, they're like, whenever I say Guyana, people always think it's Ghana. I'm like, yes. I can relate to that.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you have a good history there. Do you feel like you've kind of kept up in a sense with your Burmese roots in a sense?
Definitely. I would say that I'm more so in touch with my Burmese roots, because most of my extended family, they still live in Burma. So I've traveled to Burma, you know, about 3-4 times in the past, whereas I've never been to India. But I can speak Gujarati better than I can speak Burmese. Actually, I can only speak very little Burmese to get by. But I can understand all of Burmese. So if a Burmese person spoke to me, I could understand exactly what they're saying. But I would say, and even food-wise, I would say a lot of our food was more sort of Burmese rather than, Indian.
But it's really interesting.
Yeah. But the thing is, now there's actually so many more Burmese people living in London. So, and I think with the media as well and everything, like it's easy to find out a bit more about Burma. You know, you can just Google anything now. So so now it's like a lot of people know about that country. Something's good, obviously something's bad, like there's a military coup going on there at the moment. So yeah.
But that's like with everywhere else, really, though, isn't it? There's always good, bad, and ugly in every part of the world, really. So, but I really find your history and your like background very interesting. It's just amazing, like when you really get to know people, like the diversity and all the things that make them that person. It's just really interesting for me. Yeah.
So sorry, Dania, carry on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that's I thought that was all really interesting as well, and things I didn't even know about you. So it's just really nice to know that and to hear how all of those different cultures influence who you are today. As Bumi said, it's just really interesting. And so, as well as kind of where you're from, as you said, you're a speech and language therapist. Can you tell us a bit about your journey to becoming a speech and language therapist?
Yeah, so quite a long journey again. So funny enough, when I did my first degree, so when I was 18, I probably never heard of what speech and language therapy or speech and language therapist. So when I first started university, I was a very different sort of Faizal, very carefree, had the gift of the gab, I would say, quite a bit of a charmer sort of person. And like really, I had no sort of direction. Like, I don't know, at that time, there's careers advice, it was non-existent. It was really non-existent. That's how I felt. And coming from, so like an Asian sort of background, it's either lawyer, doctor, accountant.
We can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what to look up to. So I thought, okay, fine. I'm not very like a medicine type person, so I'll do law. Law sounds good. So I went into university, and coming from like a inner London borough, when I went to university, even though the university was in London, it was just such a different experience, and I just wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready, and I realized that I was living in a bubble when I lived in my borough, and the way I spoke, the way I saw things, like it was both. And I struggled to fit in at university the first time I went, and to be honest, because of that, I would say, I just wasn't engaged. So I got through it, I got the degree, but I came out and I just went straight into work. And, I remember even before starting university, I said to my mum at that point, I really like working, actually. I really like making money for some reason. I like working. At that time, that was my mindset. I just want to work. I'll be really good. And, I'm the eldest, and I've got 3 siblings. So there was that sort of added pressure. You can focus on that anytime, which is actually a valid point as well. You can work anytime, but this is education, so you should really go for education. So so that was another reason. I did it, I finished it, but when I came out, I just wasn't really interested in that area, so I never pursued it at that time, and I went into something completely different, estate agency. Because I like buying, selling. Some of my friends were in that, sounded like fun, and I did that. A really competitive environment, but actually it really opened my eyes to, you know, the real world. Then I came out of that and I pursued a bit more law again, doing odd jobs part-time. But again, you know, I just had no luck. I think it was just very competitive. When people give you a shot, they kind of want you to do all the sort of reception filing duties. They want to, you know, you can call it exploitation to some extent, because they want you to do all those jobs. They don't want to really pay you, all voluntary, but then there's no any job or any prospect after. So maybe I could have been more patient, but at that time I was impatient. So I thought, no, I'm not having any of that. So I just started working, and I worked until 25. I was working in the civil service. And then one day my friend called me, and, you know, I was just telling her, you know, I just feel like I'm in a dead end. There's like no, at that time we were in a recession as well, and there was no progression. There was a job freeze. And she said, oh, you know, my sister's doing this course. It's called speech and language therapy. She knows me really well. She said to me, I think you'll be really good at something like that, because she knew I always wanted to do something where it was about helping people. She knew my character. I thought, okay, let me have a look into this. I think I was about 24, 23. So I looked into it. I thought, okay, yeah, this sounds good. I can actually get into this course as well. Let me do some work experience. So all the things I never did for my first degree. So let me go and do some work experience. So I did some work experience with the adult cohort. So working, just helping out in a stroke association, things like that. Did a bit more research. And at the time, I just made a speculative application to a few to see if I could get in, applying as a mature student. And I got 3 offers.
Wow.
So I chose the one closest to London. So I studied in Leicester. And yeah, that's how I got into speech and language therapy. So as a mature student, found out about it very late in the day. But at that time, I just wanted a bit like a focus in my life, I think. I just felt like I really need to do something, change things around. Where it was the whole thing about law, not making it there, and a bit like, oh, have I failed? And then there's this, you know, 25, like in our sort of culture, 25, 26, 27, you know, the marriage, like that comes into mind. And I'm just like, you know, you do need a, you know, yeah, I need to focus now. I need to focus my life. So this is the path I decided to take.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And I think I just really like hearing people's journeys. And I feel like, you know, because I've had a bit of a zigzag journey as well. But I think whatever you do, like, there's always things that you pick up from the different areas that you're involved in, that you sort of end up infusing into what you do. Not to say that if you became a speech therapist first, then, you know, that's something different. No, like, it's just, it is really interesting when people bring different aspects of their experiences and merge it together. So one thing that I was thinking about is, you know, you said that your friend told you about the course because her sister was doing the course, and you did the work experience. At that time when you were applying, before you went on the course, did you realize that it was quite female dominated? Did you know anything about, like, the demographics of the profession?
No. So I researched the job, and once I accepted the offer, I went to one of those open sort of days where they spoke a bit more about the career. And so I was in the lecture theatre because it was for health sciences at that time. So there were people from other courses, and I was like, there's not many, but that's fine. And then the lady who was the head of the course, she was just saying that yeah, so it's quite a female dominated career, so it's nice to have some male representation. And then she was also going on to say, but that's not why we've sort of let you onto the course, so we don't want you to you're male, that we let you onto the we did it by merit. But when she said that, I didn't really think much of it, to be fair. And funny enough, on my course, even so, when I started my course, I was one of 5 males on the cohort. So I only found out when the RCSLT came to visit that's actually the largest male cohort in the whole of the UK.
I was gonna say that
yeah,
sounds like a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
because usually it's like one guy, one random guy in a group of like 30, 40 women.
Yeah,
literally.
How many were in your group roughly?
So there were about 35 to begin with, and so 1, 2, there were 5 males on our but at that time, even then, I thought, okay, still outnumbered here, but but they say that about nursing as well, and then but going to hospital, there are still some male nurses, so I thought, okay, fine, like, yeah, it is, but then I didn't research that part, and because I sort of had 5 males on my course, mate, it didn't hit me as much until I entered the world of work.
The real world.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's really interesting. And actually, if I follow that, just kind of thinking through, because I think just thinking about your history in terms of your first degree, so like law, and then going on to do like estate agent, I'd have automatically assumed, and because usually you tend to find that male SLTs tend to go into like stroke rehab, adults, they tend to go into like youth offending. I'm like, it's just really interesting to find someone who works with pediatrics. So what, like, how did that come about? What kind of like prompted you to go down that route, working with younger children?
So yeah, it's that, see, again, so when I told everyone I've taken a pediatric job on my course, they were just, what? But I was working towards adult speech and language therapy, and that's what I was doing. But what I found when I was, when I finished the course and I was applying, I had actually accepted an adult job outside of London in the Midlands. And it was a really tough interview, I remember, as well. So I was really like chuffed that I got it. At the same time, I was looking, you're still registered to the jobs website, and then a job came up, where I sort of live, and I was like, oh, okay, let me just sort of apply for this. Got nothing to lose. And I made an application, and I think initially I didn't get the job because there were other applicants. So I was dead set for going, and then they called me saying, actually, there's another opening that's come up. We really liked you. They told me that the first time as well, we really liked you, but because there's a sort of point system, someone scored more than you, so that's fine. So then I had this massive decision to make, like, what should I do? And I thought, I was staying at home at the time, so I thought, actually, you get I'll save a lot of money actually if I stay at home. At the same time, now I had finished my course, I was thinking about marriage and things like that as well. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take the one closer, and I'll just see how I go. So yeah, everyone was shocked when I took a pediatric post. I think I was, I hope I'm doing the right things. You can't, yes, everything was towards adults, but my last placement was children, before I left university, so I did have it sort of fresh in my head. But
and I think that's an important thing. Sorry guys, I'm taking over this, just find this really interesting.
No, go ahead.
I think that's really interesting, because when I started speech and language therapy, I was set on working either in adults or like just working dysphagia, because I really enjoyed it, so I wasn't going to go for much else. And I think that's what I say to people now, that never say never. and don't assume that you already know the path that you're going to take on this journey, because it's interesting that you did your final placement and that kind of like just helped you open it up to something else for you, if that makes sense, open your eyes to seeing like the pediatric caseload and what that looks like. So it's just really interesting that speech and language therapy is one of those things that you don't go in thinking, oh, I know what I'm going to do, and you come out. You don't always end up on the same resolve by the time you're graduating. Can I follow that with another question, actually? So what was your family's response when you told them that you're going into speech and language therapy, but also especially if they ever found out about the demographics within the profession, how did they respond to that?
Yeah, so when I first, I think even funny, because even after I finished the course, even till today, so my mum, she's not around anymore, but even I don't think she ever fully understood what I do for my job, to be fair. I don't think my dad as well. At the time, it was more about sort of living out somewhere and like moving out and starting again. That was more worrying for her. I don't think the course, or she didn't because she really understand the course, she didn't really know about the demographics. And actually, I have a brother that's a nurse who's younger than me, so I don't think even that was that was it. I think it was more about, wow, that's a big sort of move you're doing, and obviously away and being the first. Although I was like an adult at the time, but I think there's always, oh no, if he moves away, he's gonna become bad. So go out of line. So, I think that was more her worry. So it wasn't that, but I think, one of the sort of challenges even now that I find is actually a lot of people don't understand what a speech and language therapist does, unless they've had, when I was telling people that actually this is what I'm going to do now, unless they had direct contact with a speech and therapist, or a family member had. No, they were a bit like, so what's that then? So you do this, you do sign language then? That you must know sign language. So my dad thinks, he's convinced I know sign language. But there's very little understanding, and that was actually the challenge. Well, so even when I had an arranged marriage, but even explaining to some of, like, when I went, so obviously the girls I met, they knew what it was, like they had an idea, but explaining to the sort of parents what I do was a bit okay, like this, so you have to sort of explain it in a different way.
That's so interesting.
Definitely.
So you've touched on some of the challenges that you faced around, telling your family about what you're going to do, kind of, I don't know, changing perceptions, I guess, on the actual speech and language therapy role. Now I just want to ask you a bit about what were your challenges, I guess, through your kind of journey of speech therapy. So maybe through uni, what were some of the challenges that you faced, and then also once you started working as well?
Yeah, so in terms of university, I think so there was just pressure there from the beginning, because it was a second degree. You really had to, you can't mess up this time, so that was always there. And actually maybe it helped in a way, because as a mature student, you're more focused, you're just wired. Yes, you can still actually that you need to get things done. And gone were the days where you could read something the night before, or write an essay the night before and try and pass that off. I think going into something you a bit older, your brain doesn't work the same way. So I think I had to really, that getting used to that was a massive challenge. And then sometimes on the course, so yes, you're a minority, and sometimes you get these unhelpful comments. Oh yeah, they'll love you because you're a guy. oh yeah, oh, you don't need to worry about a job because you get one easily because you're a guy. And you just, I mean, I guess people don't mean that in a bad way. They don't mean it in a bad way, but you just feel like, oh man, I rather not, don't employ. If you think, oh yeah, he's a guy, but I like to be thought of on merit or because I'm good. I think
Of course.
you get that sort of so placements. So obviously Leicester is a very diverse city. Great, loved it, loved Leicester, but the placement covered like a massive area, and I think one of the placements, it was somewhere quite far, sort of Nottinghamshire side, and it was the placement itself was really out in the sticks, and you only, so when you grow up in such diverse areas, it's only when you go to these sort of areas where you're just like, oh, I really stick out now. Like I say to my friends as well, it's only when you actually drive down the M1 and you stop at a service station somewhere a bit out, you're like, oh right, okay, I'm so
It feels like you're in a different country.
Yeah, it really does. And that's so for one of my placement, and that was my first placement, like big placement. That's how I actually felt. And I just had a bad start. It was in the sticks, and my first day I was late, but I was really apologetic. They just were, my clinical ed just wasn't having it. And I found it really difficult to sort of bond with her. There were some other nice staff members there, but they obviously had their own caseload and really awkward. I remember going at lunchtime to my car to eat my lunch because I just, it was, I didn't. And, and there was one incident I remember where, so it was a place for sort of elder children and adults with learning disabilities, and one of the service users, he had severe dysarthria, but so he called me the P word while I'm on placement.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
First I was like, have I heard this right? Because my educator, have I heard this right? So my educator, obviously she was shocked as well. So she was like, what did you just say? And he said it again. And then obviously she was like, oh my God, no, you can't say that kind of thing. That's really, you don't sort of say that. So, it was really hard because obviously they said to me, what do you want to do now? So how do you want to take it? So obviously I'm already having a really bad time at this placement. What do you do? And obviously you think about the service user as well. I don't know what his background is. I don't know. So at that time, I just brushed it under the carpet. But, thinking about it, it was like, surely, was there some sort of policy? Like, they had to go, anything like that? Or was it easier just to, I don't know, brush it? It was fun. I don't know.
Sorry to interrupt, Faizal, but it's just in terms of what you said, like they said to you, what do you want to do about it? That's what I was thinking. That's what's a bit like, okay, but you're like, why should you have to manage that whole thing by yourself? Like, there should have been some sort of support for,
Exactly.
Gosh.
I guess, we could have talked about it a bit more, but there wasn't, like, I don't know, there wasn't no procedure there to be followed, I guess. And it was almost like you want to go sort of further with this. You feel like, you're kind of already like odd one out there, and it already wasn't going too well. I think we were coming towards the end as well, and I just thought, you know what, I just need to really get out of here. But I just remember that placement giving me so much anxiety. So afterwards, when I was telling, like after the incident, after I finished the placement, you know, I don't know if it's some sort of like the way you look at it, like you know, you look at it like a defense mechanism or something like that, where you just sort of almost think, you just kind of like, I don't know, laugh it. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but you kind of like laugh it off afterwards. You know, oh my God, there was so much effort to get those words out. Now, all the words you could have said, is that the only, you know, word you could have said? And you know, it was just, yeah. And only when I started thinking, when I started thinking about this more, I remember this, and I actually thought, you know what, that was a really horrible placement. It didn't mix with anyone. Obviously, that incident happened. You know, I was getting, you know, picked on for like really little things, like, you know, writing, you know, things that are subjective, like writing styles, things like that. You know, like or little things. No matter what you sort of did, it just wasn't good enough. It was just one of those type of placements. So you just kind of, maybe didn't really want to make a, like me, it might have even been me who didn't really want to make a big deal out of it because of how things were going there. And at the same time, you're like, you know, the only sort of Asian person sort of there. So you just kind of, I don't know, I just kind of let, you know, part of me probably just let it go as well. And, you know, I didn't take it really that bit further to sort of university or nothing like that as well. But the way I was feeling in placement and things like that, I did. And like I said, in that aspect, they were, you know, quite, you know, they were supportive. Yeah, they came to visit. They gave me some ways to sort of manage. So, I'm just glad I got through that. But happy to say the rest of the placement, they weren't as bad. After I was fine.
That's good. And you know, that is quite a difficult situation, which if you've listened to my story on the podcast, that episode, I can relate to a lot of that. Obviously not exactly the same as what you've experienced, but there are some similarities, definitely. Can you just share a bit about how you overcame that challenge? Because I know that you spoke about the fact that the uni was quite supportive. What kind of things did you do as well to kind of help you to kind of get through that tricky situation?
So usually when I get stressed, I think for me as a Muslim, so prayer was very, and so, you know, that really helps me. So my spiritual side really helped me to sort of overcome that. And I think, you know, having your other sort of course mates, colleagues for support to talk to, that was helpful. That was really helpful. Just for that sort of support, you know, that, you know, it's fine, don't worry. Sometimes you need that, I don't know, maybe I need it, but you need that reassurance that actually, you know what, you're good at what you sort of do, you're doing the right thing.
I mean, I don't want to go too off topic either. And so this is just a very quick contribution, really. I just wonder whether this is something that students are really prepared for on the course. You know, how to deal with these type of situations that might crop up. Because like I said, I've experienced something very similar where I was in a school in an area outside of London, and a child was just refusing to attend the session with me because he said he doesn't like Black people. I didn't know what to do. And again, similar to you, Faizal, I was rationalizing it. I was like, well, he's got communication needs. Maybe, you know, I don't know, it could be, I don't know what it is, you know, just trying to kind of rationalize it. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't actually tell anyone. I didn't tell anyone. I just put it on the notes because I didn't know where to put it. But I didn't tell anyone. I just was that okay? And then just try to talk him around it, say, come on, it'll be fun and all of that. But internally, I was really upset by it. But I didn't tell, this was when I was working, I didn't tell my manager because that relationship wasn't great. I didn't feel safe in that environment either. So it's just a really difficult situation. And I just wonder whether it would have been worth that discussion happening a bit more on the course. Like, what do you do if you are facing, if you are as a student or even someone working, if you experience something like racism, racist comments made against you, or I guess we were such a minority, maybe it just wasn't discussed. I don't know, but I just think even if it's things like sexism or, you know, discrimination of any sort, I just think it would be good for that to be addressed on the course as well. So yeah, and to know what to do in those situations.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've spoken a lot about your challenges on the course then. Can you tell us a bit about your experience of being a male and someone from a BAME origin in SLT?
Yeah, so generally, where I work, it's you know, it's positive. It's definitely positive. So where I work, you know, things like, for example, it's a very diverse place where I work, and you know, things like praying, I could pray at work in a room, no problem. It will be fine. Whereas, you know, before in places where I've worked, I've never have thought about that. Yeah. Yeah. I think when I was working in the youth offending service, especially, I think, you know, it really helped me to engage, build a rapport with, you know, the young people. Definitely. And I think that's a bit about ethnicity, but also being male as well, because, you know, it's that sort of, you know, having, like, looking at a positive sort of role model, male model, I'm using my words, male role model. So yeah. And there were some things we could like relate to as well, things like taste in music, you know, sports. So that was really helpful. And you know, it was really rewarding because when I actually took that role, the engagement, there was a break, and then I restarted. The engagement levels were generally quite low with the young people, and it's actually quite a new area, you know, of speech and language therapy. So I was really able to get, you know, young people to engage, sit with me, carry out assessments, like, you know, talk to them. Really, you know, I really, really enjoyed that role. Really great. So some of the others, so I think what really helps as well is, you know, you can get where your clients are coming from as well, being from a BAME, or the parents of the service users, because coming from a like Asian background, as I was saying, that, you know, this speech and language therapy, it's quite new to people actually, and they kind of don't know what we do or how we do it. So for example, you know, so very much people are on the medical model, I feel, from a background. So okay, something's wrong, okay, I'm gonna come here and you're just gonna sort of fix it for me. And you know, doing that whole therapy and working with your child, that's alien concept. You know, for some parents, I'm not saying all, but for some it is. And some of it is about sort of managing that expectation and kind of know where they're sort of coming from, because that sort of you know about that a little bit more. So you know, some of the examples is, when I used to work in clinic, some of their parents, they used to take their children abroad and get seen by a specialist there for example, a stammer. And I would say, okay, so what did that specialist say to you about the stammer? they would say, oh yeah, they gave me some vitamin D tablets. They said it was a vitamin deficiency. Okay, fine. So how has that gone? Did that work? No, he still stammers. Okay, so you know, it was that. And my brother, he actually did a placement in Malaysia, and he was when patients used to come in to the doctors as a placebo almost, they just used to put them on the drip because there was that expectation that I need something, whether they needed it or not clinically, that was a different question, but they almost had that expectation. If you didn't give it, they would feel the doctor hasn't actually done anything. So there's this whole, you know, trying to relate to that, trying to tell them what your, you know, how this works and things like that. I think being from a BAME, I think the NHS has saved loads of money because, like, you know, I can speak Gujarati, I can speak Urdu, I can speak Hindi. So Urdu and Hindi are quite similar. So yeah, Gujarati. So you know, that helps. And I think you know, I have a bit more cultural awareness, I would say, about religious festivals, dietary requirements, things like, you know, I would know, for example, you know, not to offer maybe a Muslim family an appointment at 1 o'clock on a Friday, because it might be something like Friday prayers for them. You know, and I think growing up in sort of inner London, you just have a bit more awareness about different religions. Sometimes I'm shocked when you speak to someone who sort of, you know, they're in a high position and they don't know about actually other cultures. Like they don't know about maybe different sort of festivals, little things like that. I just think, wow, surely, you know, you've lived in this area for such a long time. Surely you know a bit more about like the different types of people that live here, or they want. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, and I just feel, you know, I think clients can work more. Or the service users, they can be a bit, I don't know, they maybe, you know, sometimes people feel comfortable with their own almost, you get, and so they're a bit more, so they can be a bit more free with you, and you know, also being Muslim as well, you know, you got a child with, for example, complex needs, and you know, with religion, obviously, you have this belief that, you know, God controls everything, and you know, that's great. I believe that too. But sometimes it could be to the extent that God controls everything, so I don't need to do anything. But actually, you know, when you go to sleep, you still lock your door at night. You wouldn't sleep with your door open. Sorry, I'm going out of point because, yeah, because you know, you would do that because, you know, otherwise you will get robbed.
Yeah.
You'll get robbed.
Yeah.
So you know, it's understanding that those sort of little, those sort of things, or you know, it does help. You know, it does help. But then, you know, so then some of the challenges, obviously, of being a male, you know, I think is isolating. It's lonely. It's a lonely place being a male speech and language therapist. You know, we did have one locum from Australia that was another male, but we just worked in such different roles that we hardly ever got to sort of really get to know each other, or much, except for email. But it's you know, it's lonely at times. I remember once going on a training and speaking to a speech and language therapist that was from Qatar, working in Qatar. And actually, one of the main questions I was asking him was, "Are there more males there?" Like, and he was like, "Oh no, it's different there. There's a lot more male therapists there." I was like, "Oh,
it's interesting."
Okay, and then he even gave me his number. And I said, if you're interested in, like, you know, coming to have a look, blah blah, you know, you can. I never went, but yeah. And sometimes I don't know. Maybe this is stereotypical. Maybe it's wrong of me, but you know that banter about football scores. Oh yeah, your team was like, you know, when you're in that, it can happen. Sorry, don't say it, but like, you know, you have that boisterous sort of banter, but that you know, it's just yeah. And sometimes I've been on to training, there's like about 75, 100 people there, and I'm just the only guy.
Yeah.
And then you get someone and they'll say, oh, ladies.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, oh, yeah. And then you have, yeah, and sometimes you just have that sort of, I remember listening to one of your episodes actually, and you're talking about imposter syndrome. And I feel like sometimes being the only male, you just like, I must be here. Like, am I just in the wrong, seriously, in the wrong, like, place? And I actually suffer from that quite a lot, I have to say. And like, you know, I speak to my wife and she's just like, listen, seriously, if you wasn't good enough, don't you think someone would have like realized by now? Yeah, like so harsh on yourself. You know, you're just being. But like, no, really, you know. So seriously, I just feel like I'm so sort of like out of place sometimes. I'm sure people are looking at me like, you know, in training, thinking, you know, I bet he's in the wrong. I bet he's in the wrong lecture. Let's wait 5 minutes. Let's wait 5 minutes. That, yeah, but. No, I was in the right lecture, but it's yeah, it does yeah, it does feel like that. Yeah, and sometimes people just assume I'm female on an email. So when they're talking about me, they will say, yeah, so just tell her to bring the D in, and I'm just like, yeah, role. They just sort of assume that, yeah, you must be female, and sometimes I just turn up and they're like, oh.
Yeah. And is there anything that like you feel that people have done to make it feel like less lonely? Because being lonely, feeling isolated at work is a really horrible feeling. Is there like, can you remember anything that's made you feel a bit more comfortable, or is there anything that you would like you know, recommend in terms of making males feel more welcome in the profession?
So I think when I say yeah, isolate, I mean everyone I work with, like it's fine. Everyone talks to me, like it's not because I'm male they don't, like we still still very, like, you know, have good relationship with all my colleagues, I would say. But I think with I think it's more me being a guy in, you know, you feel like, so it's not that, you know, people won't like come and talk to me because I'm male. They will. That's all great. And actually now I'm more in a sort of multidisciplinary environment. So other sort of males within sort of the building and other professionals and things like that. So I do have that. But I think I remember when I started, my manager for the first sort of 1 or 2 years when she was recruiting, she always used to say, "Yep, I'm going to find a male therapist. I'm going to find." This never happened. Yeah, no, nice. Apart from the yeah, the locum, it hasn't happened. So now I work in feeding, which is quite different to communication.
Yeah.
And maybe I feel like, maybe Faizal, did you really think this one through? Because at that time, I just really wanted to finish a role that I was doing. So I just took anything. I want to do something different. And dysphagia, actually, in the adult world, obviously, it's, you know, I was like, okay, yeah, you know, one day I may still want to go into adult speech and language therapy. It's not that I said no to it. So dysphagia will be really, really useful. So I've done dysphagia. It's great. I really enjoy it. But then there's this part of the role where, you know, you're dealing with like young babies. You're talking about things like breastfeeding, and that can be hard at times. And I can understand that from a parent's perspective, coming from an Asian background. So no one's ever said to me, "Oh, you're a male therapist, I don't want you to come and see me." That happened, but I've had like parents maybe complain to another professional saying, "Why is a male therapist coming? You know, like, you know, that's not right. Like, don't you have anyone else to sort of deal with breastfeeding, that kind of thing?" Which is kind of fun. Unfortunately, we don't where I work currently. we don't. But we have found some other ways to sort of manage that. But that is quite hard. And as like, I'm a bit conscious as well that you do feel a bit. I was saying that to my manager as well in supervision, and she said, no, she said, maybe you're looking at it the wrong way. Actually, you know, you should see yourself as like more like a, what's that, like a revolutionary or something. Those stereotypes, you know, I go, yeah, but no, but that it can be like that, you know, and you think, okay, shall I, yeah. So, you know, am I in the right place? Yeah, you feel like that sometimes, but saying that though, that's not like an everyday situation, but when they can be quite tricky. I think another thing about being BAME was, so this beard, I never used to have it before, actually. It came in lockdown. But then, you know, actually, during that time, you know, a lot of things were happening, and actually, you know, I've always wanted to keep it's part of being a Muslim. Not everyone has one, but it's part of the religion. So I thought, yes, now I've grown, well, I'm going to keep it. I actually feel like quite guilty about now cutting it off. I didn't realize, but now I do. This is something in me. And then there was this whole issue around PPE, which I have to say my trust actually handled it, you know, quite well. But there was a lot of like to and throwing about what is it, a lot of meetings about it. You almost felt a little bit like, you know, am I being a bit of a troublemaker here? And Faizal 10 years ago would have probably said, you know what, yeah, do you know what, I'll just save it, you know. I'll just do it and I'll just continue. But actually I was just like, no, I'm gonna keep it, because actually, you know, I'm not working in a ward or nothing like that. There are some clients that I see where I may need a different type of PPE. You need to kind of find that for me, whereas I probably wouldn't have had that confidence. You know, if I student, for example, or something like that, I would have just conformed and be like, okay. But to, you know, great credit to my trust. You know, they found me something. And it's done. I have it now, so it's all good. After about a month, I've read some articles actually about the beard issue in the NHS. There was some forcing their employees to shave their beards, and some were actually being sort of let go if they weren't going to shave their beard. So I have to say, I was not in that situation, but you know, but I was at the same time I was surprised to hear that those situations can occur. These, you know, beard, it's not just Muslims that have beard as well. It's for their religion. Jewish people have men, you know, Orthodox community, they keep beards from a religion point of view. So, but you know, they did make a great effort to get it. But I just, you know, when things like drag out a little bit long, you do get this doubt, like, like bit, you know, a bit. Am I the troublemaker here? But to be fair, no, they did get it for me, yeah. So,
and I always find it quite interesting that there was an alternative, and like obviously it's different because, you know, we've said this so many times. If you don't know, you don't know. I wouldn't know that there's some other alternative, but it's just that thing of, have people actually looked? Have they considered, or is it just conform to this or nothing? Do you know what I mean? Like, and like you said, when you're sometimes when you're younger, it's not always when you're younger, but when you're less confident, or you don't even know that you can kind of ask for these things, you just think, oh, I'll just do what they say, even if it's detrimental to me. But actually, there was an alternative the whole time. It's just they didn't know about it, to be fair. But then they, you know, you said your managers and the trust went and actually thought about it and found a way around it. That's brilliant.
It's really
but
good.
What if you go somewhere and they're like, no? It's just like a while ago we were talking about back in the day tights, where, you know, people used to get in trouble for not wearing nude color tights, but when they said nude color, they meant nude color for white skin. So, you know, wouldn't match my skin and it would look a bit silly, but people are getting in trouble for that, you know. So I think it's just, I think it's a really important point of being prepared to kind of explore things a bit more, and then before you say there's no other way, you know. Yeah, I think it's a really big, because there's so many things that there's no way that you can think up every single situation, but as long as there's time for dialogue, like it should help.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think, though, in your opinion, could be done here in the UK to kind of like promote diversity within the profession?
I think from sort of like, even so in schools, yeah, so when I was younger, there wasn't much career advice and things like that, but I think maybe a push around sort of getting out to the colleges, possibly, talking about the benefits of sort of speech and language therapy, and what, the different types of things you can do. Like, some people might have an impression that it's just, working in schools with children, and some for some that might not be appealing, but there's actually so much more to speech and language therapy. So obviously there's the youth offending side, there's the swallowing side, there's adults, there's children. So I think a push around that, definitely. I think that RCSLT, like when I've been reading through, they did have some diversity workshops. They are sort of bringing it to the agenda now. So that's positive to see. I think, it's good that they're thinking about it now, but I think, just maybe a bit more. I still think it's quite a young career, like in the how many people know about it. It's not something like pharmacy. If you say pharmacy to someone, they know that exactly what that. But in terms of allied health professional, I would say just getting the word out there a bit more. I say all this, but I don't even use that much social media on that. Well, but I think those are the things that work now, isn't it? So like some sort of social media drive, that kind of thing. Maybe getting sort of male speakers or something like that, or speakers from like different backgrounds to go and speak to certain cohorts, things like that. Something like that. Something maybe a bit more targeted.
And just thinking now, I mean, your story has been so interesting to hear today. Just hearing all the different things that you've been through, the different stages of life, and kind of how you've overcome through a lot of them, and how your culture, your faith, and your personality, how that all kind of feeds into how you are today. And now, actually, it sounds like you're in a different space to where you were starting out in your career. So what would you say if you could travel back in time and speak to Faizal starting his career?
Yeah, so I would say don't rush things. Really sort of research, and do something that you enjoy. And if that means taking time out, then that's fine. Sometimes like expectation that I'm 18, I have to go to college, I have to go to, or I have, but actually no, it's okay. That I'm not saying okay, just stay at home, play computer games or whatever, but be productive. But it's not just all about going to university, especially it's 18, quite young. So I would have given myself more time, I would say. And I would say, don't be afraid to sort of, I think because I lived in my own bubble, when it came to speaking with different people from different areas, I just found it really difficult to relate and even sort of speak to them. Almost like shy, for example. So I would say, go out there, talk to sort of, everyone, travel around, like, embrace everyone more, and also, be yourself. Like I was saying, back when I was sort of 18, 19, 20, 21, I probably wouldn't have challenged a lot of things. I probably would never have done things like pray in the workplace, even though praying is a big part of who I am. But I probably would never even sort of done sort of things like that, because I wouldn't have thought about it, or I would have been too shy, or would have thought, are they just gonna say no? So you just sort of assume, or people are gonna think I'm weird. But you know what? Nah, don't feel like that. Actually, be who you are. Yeah.
Really good.
That's a strong message. It's so hard, isn't it, to be who you are, especially when you're, in a minority, whether it's being the only male, or being one of the few people from a minority background, or if it's linked to faith-related issues. It is really hard, and it's something that you just have to keep on working on.
Just to round up then, Faizal, what are your take-home messages that you want to say to the listeners today?
So basically those points in the last question about, just sort of be yourself. Also, never say never as well. So don't give up. Don't think, things are a dead end. Like I'm so thankful that even after coming out of uni, not doing particularly that well, I've managed to sort of turn it around. So you can do that. And again, stand up for yourself. That's an easy thing to say, actually, but be proud of who you are, and embrace your culture. It's be proud of being different, actually.
We would like to say a special thank you to Faizal for joining us on this episode of the Listen in Meet series, and for sharing his experiences as one of the not so many male SLTs of BAME origin in the UK. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed recording it. Please continue to engage with us on our social media handles or via email. Until next time, bye.